All right, let's just dive right into this, shall we? Welcome back, Focus Learners, to today's explainer, Monkey Economics, the jungle's boom, bust, and black market. Today we're using a seriously clever metaphor of a monkey jungle to decode the really complex financial systems that actually dictate your real-world wallet. We're going to be looking at everything from those massive macroeconomic trends that affect all of us, all the way down to the micro-level financial crimes committed by some pretty shady actors. So, in this jungle, just remember, bananas are the goods and assets, and leaves are the money moving the whole system forward.
Here's our quick roadmap for today. First up, Section 1, the macro jungle. Then, Section 2, the micro criminal. And we'll wrap it all up with Section 3, catching the shady apes. Let's get into it.
Section 1, the macro jungle. Understanding recessions and the leaf economy.
So, to really grasp a jungle-wide crisis, we first have to define GDP, or Gross Domestic Product. Our source material defines this perfectly as the total of all a monkey country's goods and services, but, to put it even more simply, think of GDP as just the total measure of leaves moving around the jungle. If a ton of leaves are moving around rapidly to buy bananas and coconuts, well, the economy is huge and healthy. But what exactly happens when that leaf movement starts to stall? Well, that brings us to economic downturns. A recession generally happens when the country's GDP goes down for at least 2 quarters in a row. But there are definitely different levels of severity here. A technical recession simply means the leaves are moving around a little slower. This is the stuff you usually hear people panicking about on the evening news. But a depression, that's when leaves are moving way slower. The economy basically grinds to a complete halt, resulting in widespread poverty and, quite understandably, some very sad monkeys.
It's really like a downward economic staircase that perfectly maps out the actual mechanics of a downturn. We call this the vicious cycle. It absolutely always starts with a shock, maybe a natural disaster, a pandemic, or a sudden spike in oil prices. Because of this shock, everyday monkeys get nervous and start hoarding, meaning they spend fewer leaves. Because they aren't spending, monkey businesses make less profit. And because they're making less profit, monkey bosses are forced to fire monkey workers. Now those unemployed workers have even fewer leaves to spend, and the whole cycle just accelerates, leading to rising poverty and social unrest. Now, sometimes monkeys don't even realize they're in a recession until it's actually over, but there are always clues. We call these recession indicators. For businesses that are struggling, you might see them doing things like rebranding old leftovers as exciting new products, or movie studios releasing completely unnecessary sequels just for a quick cash grab. For the everyday monkeys, the signs are a bit more dire. And honestly, kind of funny in our metaphor. You'll literally see them paying for a single banana in installments, or suddenly, out of nowhere, every monkey YouTuber is making panic videos about recessions.
But hey, as scary as these downturns are, history actually gives us a ton of perspective. If we look at past monkey crises, we see that the jungle always eventually bounces back. I mean, the 1920s monkey depression, that took over 10 years to recover from. The 2008 housing crisis took about 2 years, but the 2020 pandemic shock saw the GDP bounce back in less than a single year. The absolutely crucial takeaway for you here is that recessions, while super stressful, are historically temporary.
So how exactly does the jungle bounce back? Well, generally with a little help from the government. The monkey government can step in and inject life back into the economy in a few ways. They can hand out leaf stimulus checks directly to the citizens. They can cut banana taxes or subsidize struggling businesses. They'll even build new monkey roads and bridges just to create new jobs out of thin air. But the biggest thing they do is lower interest rates. By making it cheaper to borrow leaves from the bank, businesses can expand, hire back those workers, and get those leaves moving around the jungle once again.
All right, moving on to Section 2, the micro criminal, the dark art of money laundering.
Okay, so imagine a monkey decides to rob the bank. Suddenly, they have a massive pile of illegal leaves. But they can't just walk in and deposit them. That would set off major alarms instantly. They need money laundering. This is the highly illegal process criminals use to clean their stolen leaves, essentially disguising them so they appear to be perfectly legitimate monkey income. Think of it like a criminal trying to delete their money's search history.
And this whole process pretty much always follows a strict 3-step rhythm. First up is placement. This is where the monkey takes the stolen leaves and injects them into the economy, basically distancing the cash from the original crime. Second is layering, transferring those leaves through multiple bank accounts, properties, or businesses to make the trail incredibly confusing to follow. And finally, integration. The leaves are paid back to the monkey criminal, but now they look squeaky clean and completely legitimate.
So how do they actually pull off that first step without getting caught right away?
Well, there's a clever, if oddly named, tactic called smurfing. If a monkey deposits 100,000 leaves all at once, the bank is obviously going to ask some questions. But if the monkey deposits one leaf 100,000 different times in tiny little transactions, that slips right under the radar. Smurfing is basically the dark art of staying just below the bank's suspicion threshold.
Right, and for that second step, the layering part, criminals heavily rely on shell companies. This is a business that exists totally and completely on paper. Seriously, there's no inventory, there are no employees, there isn't even a physical address. Setting one up is actually perfectly legal, but criminals exploit them to hide their leaves. During that layering phase we just talked about, they bounce the money from one fake corporation to another, creating this confusing, tangled web that authorities really struggle to unweave. But honestly, shell companies in smurfing, they're definitely not the only tools in the shed. Criminals also use heavy cash businesses, like banana laundromats, where it's almost impossible to trace exactly how many physical leaves came in on any given day. They lie about their sales numbers in trade-based laundering, they use fast-paced casinos, they trick online money mules, and get this, they use luxury assets, like literally buying a banana taped to a wall for 6.2 million leaves just to park their dirty money. Oh, and of course, they use cryptocurrency, falsely believing that the cloud makes them totally untraceable.
Which brings us to Section 3, Catching the Shady Apes, IRS Monkeys, and the Price of Crime.
Because as it turns out, it is really hard to move massive piles of leaves in secret. The iris monkeys have some very strict detection triggers. Just look at the thresholds here. If a monkey deposits 10,000 leaves or more at once, it triggers a CTR, or Currency Transaction Report, and the IRS is absolutely going to check it out. Trying to be smart and deposit just under 10,000? Nice try, but that triggers a SAR, or Suspicious Activity Report, and they'll check that out too. And if a monkey's lavish lifestyle clearly doesn't match their reported income, boom, lifestyle audit. The IRS uses heavy data analytics to make sure the math always adds up.
Okay, now here is a genuinely mind-blowing fact from our source material. Even if a monkey earns leaves completely illegally, like say by robbing a bank, the government still expects their cut. Yeah, you heard that right. They actually require the monkey to pay taxes on stolen money. Now, because of the Fifth Amendment protecting against self-incrimination, they don't make you write bank robbery on your tax forms. You're simply expected to report it under other income. But if you lie about it or try to hide it, you are in massive trouble.
And history proves that these tax monkeys, they absolutely do not mess around. Look at the famous gangster, Ape Capone. He ran a massive crime enterprise, involved in extortion, bribery, bootlegging, the whole shebang. The police knew it, but they just couldn't pin the underlying crimes on him. Ultimately, he was taken down and convicted for one thing, tax evasion. He didn't report his illegal monkey crime boss income to the IRS. It just goes to show that following the money trail is often the ultimate weapon for justice.
To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of why authorities care so much, take a look at this staggering number. It's estimated that roughly 2 to 5% of the entire global monkey GDP each and every year is tied up in money laundering. To put that into human terms, we're talking about trillions of dollars, a massive portion of the entire world's wealth being moved through the shadows right under our noses.
Because there are just so many leaves moving in the shadows, it leads to this really fascinating irony. Financial criminals are frequently way more afraid of the tax agents than they are of the actual police. It is a wild jungle out there. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I'll leave you with this to ponder. Whether it's a sudden macroeconomic recession or the hidden micro black market, are you prepared for the next twist in the jungle economy?